All right, everybody. Today I have two special guests with me. I have Raul Perez and Kevin J. Kelley. Raul is the director and co-writer, while Kevin is a writer as well of the upcoming movie 4 Points, which tells the story of two LA detectives exploring the underbelly of LA's crime-riddled streets while figuring out and suspecting that someone they know closely may very well be the one pulling the strings. So, without further ado, let's introduce the two men of the hour, Raul Perez and Kevin J. Kelley. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being with me today.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having us. We're excited to be here with you and talk about what we got coming up. Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, no, thank you. We're grateful for the opportunity to talk about something and a project that we're so very proud of. So thank you for that opportunity.
Oh, of course, of course, and as someone who has gotten a chance to see it myself multiple times, if I can brag a little, but I will say this, I've always, like I told you guys beforehand, I have always been a huge fan of like crime stories, like Heat and even Training Day, but LA based because I grew up in the LA area. That like because these are areas that I know personally and have seen and interacted with the people there. So to see stories told at the very heart and street level of LA is always something I'm so glad to see. So I guess my first question, and this will be for the both of you, would be what were some of your like inspirations, or even better yet, what spurred the idea for you guys to write this movie? Raul, I'll have you take this one first, and then Kevin, you can answer.
Um, I've always been interested in the crime drama, the LA life and stuff like that. The grittiness and stuff that, everyday people really don't see what's going on, in the streets. Like Training Day, like you mentioned, that was a huge inspiration. Um, so I wanted to show worlds of different worlds of communities in rough areas, I guess. And it's not just like, it's more than just the gangbangers who are involved in certain things, but we also, there's crooked cops, unfortunately, and it's who are also playing into these activities. And it's like, there's so many so many instances where it's just a Mexican gang or a black gang is doing this and that, but there's other people involved. So I just kind of wanted to show the grittiness and um yeah, I just again, just hearing some of the also the stories that from friends and putting some things in there without being too specific on where I heard this story from. I try to integrate it into this movie, um, if that makes any sense. But it's just yeah, I don't know. I just always been fascinated with the cop drama, the LA lifestyle and things that happened underground and stuff like that. I hope that makes sense. I don't usually do this often, so I maybe fumbling some words, but
Hey, there's nothing wrong. The point with asking these questions is always a matter of just, getting to insight on the filmmaker, seeing what inspires them and seeing what intrigues them on a personal level. Like Kevin, what drew you to this sort of story and concept?
Well, Ro and I have been family friends. My oldest son and Raul's brother played in hardcore metal bands when they were in like seventh grade, right? And so that's how we first got introduced family wise, who each of us were. And during that time, the band was able to make a video. And that's where I really got introduced to Raul's, desire to become a filmmaker and work in the Hollywood side of things. And so through the years, and this is, 13, 14 years ago, probably at this point, And so over the years, we just stayed in contact, right? This is what this is. He would work on a new project. He would do some things, and he would send them to me, and I was always very impressed and kind of envious. In the same idea that it's to be creative. We all have different outlets, right? It could be, you know, lifting weights. It could be running marathons. It could be, foodies, and could be something to do that fact. But the creativity of that outlet is something that I felt that was kind of missing. So when this opportunity came up, Raul had sent me a prior project that he worked on, and I was very, very impressed by what they did. It was a short film. And then when this came to me, we had talked about, wasn't sure where we were going to go with it specifically, kind of started with different ideas, a different plan. But where it kind of got to me is that my degree, and back in the 90s, my degree is was in writing, and I had worked briefly in Hollywood on a couple TV shows, mostly just, like assistant type stuff. And so that's where my passion was when I was much younger. And then I got into an entirely different field, did those things. And then when this came up, I saw the opportunity to work with a bunch of young and talented people. And Raul and I just have always gotten along, and we continue to get along, and we kind of worked our way through this. So it really was just I had an opportunity, and Raul was kind enough to help push that along for me. And kind of what the end result is a collaboration of, there are some scenes that I wrote completely, there are some scenes he wrote completely, and there are some scenes that we worked on together. But at the end of the day, what hit the screen was collaborative in terms of the script side of things. It was very collaborative, and it certainly fulfilled and started another creativity fire that I felt was lacking. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of how we got to where we are.
That's so interesting. It's always good to, keep at least friends in contact, because you never know when one day you're going to be like, hey, I want to do this. Hey, I've also wanted to do this. You know, bing, bang, boom, pass cross, and you get great things. Now, Rahul, you actually mentioned, you've been intrigued with LA life, and there will be another follow-up question to this one, but something that was really interesting was there are a lot of actors in this movie that looks like that if you've ever been to like if you ever been to Inglewood or Culver City or even just South Central, you'll know that if you watch this movie, there are people that just feel like they're ripped straight from the streets. So I'm wondering, when it came to casting certain characters, were you actively looking for actors, or did you just like find someone on the street and go, "Hey, do you want to be in a movie? Good, come over here. We're shooting something real quick." Like, obviously not that forward and direct, but what was the casting process like? Because it felt very LA. Like, it didn't feel like these were actors playing characters. It felt like these people could have been ripped straight from there.
I'm glad that's funny you mentioned that. Because they were. Uh, so basically how, going back to um how it all started too, we were originally gonna pursue this as a pilot presentation, right? So we had an idea like maybe we can do this as as series or something. So we wrote like 25 pages, I think, and then and so we scheduled out for a 3 day shoot. And then Kevin and I were looking over the dailies, and they just looked really, really good, and so the idea, I'm not sure who mentioned, I'm not sure if it was Kevin or myself. I don't remember the conversation, but the idea of like, let's turn this into a feature. So we're like, okay. And so because of the stuff that had already shot, um, we had to keep those same characters throughout the whole process. But because we were just going to be, it was originally going to be a pilot presentation. Um, I called some friends from back home, and I'm like, that I grew up from junior high school and high school. I'm like, I need some help. I don't have much, but can you help me out on this? So they drove down from Riverside, and you know, so so like I would say maybe 75 to 80% of these guys have never been on a set before. As far as like even like Chopper, a very dear friend of mine, he plays a major role in this. He's never set foot on he's never acted before. He's never been on a film set. Spooky, same thing, all from Corona. They came down and helped me out. So I guess you can say they were pulled from from the streets. But you know, they're my friends, and you know, some things just come natural, and they so that's how the casting went. And then of course with Dustin, you know, I worked with him several times. Great actor. You know, he knows the right questions to ask pertaining to development of his character, and he delivered great. You know, and same with all our main heroes, Dominic, Dorian, Olga, you know, Janine, and you know, but yeah, so some of them, some of the gangsters you see, you know, they're some, you know, they good friends.
Never mind. Sorry, I thought a funny thought popped in my head. Yeah, those gangsters, they're actual G's. Like they're my friends. I asked them to be in it.
Yeah.
But no, it's no, because it really there is a certain authenticity to this movie that you know, I only find in stuff that it's like by David Ayer, you know, Street City Kings, Training Day, End of Watch, where you know he is well known for just finding random people in the area and going, hey, you want to make a quick like $100? Come be an extra in a movie for me. Um, now, you guys, now, pardon me. There's a lot of environments that actually do also feel a lot like it was shot on location. Now, were you guys able to actually shoot on location, or did you guys have to shoot out of state in order to get the authenticity?
Yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
No, I was going to say that Raul picked most of the locations for what needed to be done, and he'd probably be best to dig deep into that. And we appreciate, you know, I can't tell you enough. You're naming some high level, wonderful films, and thank you for the acknowledgement.
Of course.
Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, of course, you know, it's like I said, there's certain genres of film that I find myself getting gravitated towards. So there, and like there's a lot of inspiration in 4 Points that, you know, despite being and feeling a little familiar, there's still things you guys did that were able to actually stand on their own 2 feet and still differentiate from, you know, like stuff that has come before. So that way it doesn't feel all like tropish or, you know,
Yeah.
whatnot. So
Appreciate that. Thank
of
you.
course, of course. And there are a couple of things I want to get into when it comes to like Dustin and Dominique's chemistry. We'll get to that in a bit. Don't
Mhm.
worry.
Yeah.
But in terms of location, where did you guys actually shoot this?
Yeah, so we shot it uh mostly here in LA. You know, we did some location scouting. Um and you know, huge shout out to Gigster and Peer Space. They they hooked it up, you know. That's where we found a lot of our locations. Some of these locations like act they were able to um turn into 3 different sets. You know, and that's how we maximize our budget. You know, the kitchen is one actor's home, and then the living room is another actor's home, and then the driveway is a different actor's home. So, but all of that stuff was here in LA, Inglewood, and Burbank, Glendale, um, some places in the valley. I think the furthest we've gotten was in Orange County. But yeah, a lot of it was here in LA.
Interesting, interesting. Now, Kevin, I am wondering because you know you not only did you write this, you also executively produced it as well. But I'm wondering from like the writing perspective, were there certain things that like when like because I'm guessing Raul, you had a concept and you came to him saying like, hey, I want to do this, can you help me out? And he'd be like, yeah, no problem. But
Yep.
Kevin, were there things that after hearing Raul's pitch, you're like, I want to touch upon this as well, or I want to touch upon like a certain idea, you know, that I think would be interesting. Like, what were things about 4 Points that you yourself wanted to tackle?
Well, I'll start with first is that I went to one of the first shoots that they had on scene before I had fully signed on, and I was enormously impressed by the professionalism of what was being done for an indie film. Right, Raul had great command. People respected him. We're talking multi-camera. I mean, we down to craft services. We had, makeup places and all these things. And I was most inspired by the fact that they were trying to do it with the best of quality intentions. So the real inspiration that got me involved was to see how professional and the team that Raul had put together and how it was treated. So the movie, I don't know how any other movies are written. I really don't know all those type of things, but I can tell you that this one to us was kind of unique. It was written from the inside out. So the last two scenes were really the ending and the beginning. And we wrote the middle. And when we kind of came up with the full story, the backstory, the idea of what it was, that was, we went back and maybe wrote a couple other scenes that helped lead us to those ideas. But we had shot probably, I'm going to say 50% of the movie before we even knew how it was ending and how it was starting. And so Raul and I worked our way through that, and we took enough things because the two of us were in the same mindset, a lot of collaboration, a lot of conversations. So did I have an idea that when we got together that I had a plan and direction? I would tell you that I had a plan and direction for the next scene, and then that led me to the next scene, and then that started opening up the horizons for which direction are we going to go now. And then we, like I said, then we had a brainstorming session, stayed up most of the night, tossed and turned, and somewhere we're here with the inspiration of the basic idea of the ending, right? And there are multiple endings. I guess that's fair enough to say. I don't think I'm giving away anything, but the main big scene. And so then we said, okay, how do we get here? And then that's kind of what led us to the intros of the movie. And then, like I said, then we added another couple scenes in the middle to just, as we said, hey, this is a little disjointed, rightly so. Once again, when we wrote it from the inside out, and added that, and then at the end of it, we put it all together. Our first cut of this was 2.5 hours long.
Yeah, it was
Right?
crazy.
It was long, right? And
Yeah.
so that's part of we got a lot of it on film, and that's all the credit to the crew and the cast, the people that were involved in working with us. And then we were able to put it together, and a lot of collaboration back and forth about what are we missing, what is this, and we had a couple conversations that were, the majority of our conversations were pretty direct and quick with each other, and we had a couple scenes where we both had to kind of go toe to toe, right? We had to fight for what we believed in and what we felt was there, and that the two of us, it was never a case of anything else other than respect for each other, and then we moved on to the next topic, and that's kind of the best route I can tell you. So once we kind of got into it, I understood the generational aspect of what we were trying to tell, right? I understood the story, and so that's where some of the tweaks and additions kind of came into play, is that we wanted to make sure that we were tying in the levels of generation. This is not something that just started, and that we don't foresee an ending to it. And as Raul started from the very beginning of this, that it's not all bad guys that are bad guys, right? There's some good guys that are bad guys too, and that kind of led us to all of this, to tell the story and work our way to it. And I think as we built the story, it became more and more prevalent to us, or prominent to us, to make sure that we're telling both sides of things.
And that's actually a really, really interesting answer. I've heard about movies that were started off on base concepts, and then they were like, oh, we could build something here. So to hear that it was more along the lines of more of a constructive sort of filmmaking rather than necessarily something that was fully thought through. And the fact that the product ended up the way that it was, considering the fact you had to shave off Lord knows how many things, which I'll get to later, but it speaks to the true professionalism and craftsmanship that you guys, as well as the rest of the crew, unfurled, because this is in fact in India. I cannot even imagine the struggles that must have come from working with such a low budget, which actually directs me to my next question, which was and is, Raul, this one's for you. What
Mm.
challenges did you face while filming? Because there's a difference between shooting on location and shooting on a set. And there is one scene, I'm not going to give away any sort of character names, but there's a scene where a character is chained up against against a pole, and gets his you know he gets his block knocked off.
Yeah.
And so like that felt and looked like it was shot on location. That could not have been easy, considering that looked like it was still in a neighborhooded area. So something along the lines of, what was certain challenges that you faced while shooting this movie?
For sure. So some of the, I think the biggest hurdle just for on my end was, um, as a director, you have to work with the actors and they may have some insight like, hey, this line doesn't fit, or can I do this? And it's like, everyone has those questions. How can we make it better? You know what I mean? And so for me, I was actually in between three shows. So my day job is a camera loader. So I work on TV, shows in between. So while I'm doing my Monday through Friday, I'm still trying to work with Kevin and the actors on lines and how to get through. Like Kevin said, like some things need to be worked out better. So for me, it was like trying to balance, you know, the Monday through Friday and then also the 4 points, developing it. And we shot, I think we only shot on the weekends because a lot of the crew that are my friends, they also work in the industry, so they also work on shows from Monday through Friday. So it's like my guys we're only available on the weekends. So that was the biggest thing is trying to balance all that stuff out.
If
But
I
as
can
far
if I can add for your
yeah,
role also is that I don't want to remiss this, and if you were getting to it, I apologize. But look, we started shooting this movie slightly before COVID, and the vast majority of the movie was shot during COVID. Right. So that was a huge hurdle of the things we had to do from a planning perspective and the things we needed to do to make sure everybody felt safe and worked our way through things of what we can try to do. And there were significant amounts of dark time, right, where we weren't doing anything, but we had to feel a level of comfortability as things change. But this movie really started what 3.5 years ago.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
And
absolutely. And that's a big thing too, because during COVID, like, they were still trying to figure out like the parameters, how many people you can be in a group and all this stuff and what's the safest way, which, luckily for the shows that we were working on during that time, um, was they had safety officers. So I would make sure I took all the knowledge that I had from my shows and brought it over to the 4 points to make sure everyone was safe. So yes, I think it maybe towards the end of COVID or around there, that was a big hurdle too. Um, but we made it through, we made sure everyone was safe. And that was the biggest thing. As far as locations goes, uh, referencing that scene, yeah, we just we it was also a logistical thing too of picking the location that also had like a big space for crew parking, lunch, and that we can all be on the same property without like interrupting street traffic and running, shutting down locations just for us. Like again, like Peer Space and Gigster, they had great deals, and some of them were like, I like this content, like this sounds pretty dope. Like if you can give us a shout out, we'll give you a discount. And it's like, yeah, that's great, so yeah, that location actually served as four other scenes, so it was one of those things that, again, like, it saves time, saves money, shoot it all there, right, you go to location, you're like, okay, I can see this scene happening here, the next scene inside the warehouse, crew parking is going to be over here. Like you just as a producer, you just start, and a director, you just start thinking like, how can we make all this work, in an indie world, like with the budget we have, make sure everyone's safe, make sure everyone's happy, and we also execute what we're trying to do. So that was some of the challenges, if we're still on that question. But yeah.
Yeah, that is well deeply interesting considering I've worked on indie stuff myself. I've been worked on large professional scaled stuff. And when it comes to locations and troubles on set, there's no movie set is perfect, not unless you're Nolan or something like that. Now moving away from a lot of the technical stuff, you had a lot of really talented actors. You had like, but the two I want to highlight are your main leads, Dustin and Dominique. Sorry, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Dominique, yeah.
Dominique, who have such great chemistry on screen together. Now I'm wondering, were they casted separately and then screen tested, or were you like finding actors themselves and screen testing them, and then you were like, these two are exactly the people I need?
So Dustin, I've known for a very long time. Maybe 2000, maybe 20 years now, maybe. And yeah, was I no, it couldn't have been 20 years. Uh for a long time, but not 20 years. And so I worked with him on Kevin mentioned earlier that he watched a short film that I did that kind of put this on his radar. Dustin was one of our number, what we call him number two, but he was our other lead. Um, and so I told Kevin like, hey, this is who I feel like would be great for this role. And then Dominique was brought on. I was introduced through the writer of that same short film that Kevin was referring to. So and then we did a read through, and they were just they did their thing.
And then, from then on, it's just like these are the guys. Like it's like this is it. This is it. Now, Kevin, I do want to ask you, and this could also be for you as well, Raul. Are there any specific scenes that, that either you enjoyed writing or did you enjoy directing? Just like seeing it on the page, then actually working with your actors and then seeing it fully unfold, you're just like, damn, this is what I want. This is what I'm here for. This is why I want to make movies. Kevin, you can start.
Yeah, very much so. I think that it started with the amazing, talented group, and I got more and more inspired as we shot scenes that we had put together, and just was the incredible amount of talent that I was seeing and feeling and learning their mannerisms, learning some of the way they talked, having conversations with them, taking some of their forms of speech and trying to help put it into the script as it went forward. I would say that my two favorite scenes are probably the scene where Dominique goes to talk with Dorian in the movie, and they have kind of a heart to heart and discuss some life experiences, and we help use that to show the background of how long those two had known each other. I enjoyed that scene quite a bit. I enjoyed the kitchen scene, and we'll just kind of leave it at that. And then to be on set during part of the final climactic dramatic scene and speech. And I will tell you that I don't have enough experience to know how often it happens, but when we got done with when Dorian's speech got done, um, there was a not just a poetic pause, but there was a silence, and then everybody just started applauding. And those scenes were just so meaningful in terms of what they were doing. Each of them have a little special spot in my heart as we were writing them and did what they needed to do. But those would probably be the major scenes that I felt most best about to be introduced into the industry.
Oh, and by the way, I know exactly the two scenes that you're talking about. Ooh, God, Dorian. For those of you that haven't seen the movie yet, uh, I will just say this: Dorian Wilson as Mr. Stevens. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. He gave such a great performance, and watching him and his character unfold throughout the movie, I really, I loved his complexity, and I loved the performance. That's all I'll say without giving
He,
anything away.
he
I
was
don't.
pure class. He was pure class. He was not
Oh,
supportive to the entire operation. He was a mentor for each of us working things out. Dorian has a long history and has been in a lot of things, and for Raul to be able to secure Dorian on basically just a handshake and a commitment that this is what we're going to do, is really, what put this together. But I mean, a seasoned, like I said, he works right next to guys that had never been on camera before, let alone set a line in front of a camera before. And we are just, I don't know if I can pick a word greater than grateful, but we are grateful for the entire group of what needed to be done. But man, Dorian has just been so supportive through the entire process. And he is such a cool cat. He really is.
I I honestly, that's such a great way of putting it. It's like I cannot stress enough to to those of you that have seen the movie, which by the way, very shameless plug, comes out on VOD February 7th, which as of right now on the watch that is not on my wrist is going to be tomorrow. So please be sure to check it out. It is absolutely well worth your money and well worth your watch. Anyway, back to the interview.
Thank you.
Raul,
Yeah.
same question for you as well. Were there certain scenes that you were like, oh, yeah, this is really good to write? Or even from a director standpoint, you're just like, man, working this scene out is everything I had hoped for.
Yeah, so two that stand out to me is I believe same as Kevin, and it was pretty cool because Kevin wrote that that big chunk there, and then directing it, showed like true like real dope collaboration because I know you can tell that he put his heart and sweat into that scene, just like the other ones he wrote. But because this one was a big reveal, it was important that the way it was written, and he executed that. And then just directing it, he even asked me like, hey, can we, he had some notes but as far as like the directing part of it, like that was one of also my favorite scenes, because there was a couple twists and turns there, in that ending piece. And that and just seeing Dorian just give it all, and he it was dope. Dominique, Dustin, everybody that I don't know, getting excited, but that ending scene was dope. The other one that stands out to me is when Dustin and Spooky are in front of the backdrop of the LA buildings by the train tracks, and then that lowrider pulls up, and then and they have that conversation about Chopper, and it was just kind of like it just like the city of LA is just it's beautiful, like even in like in the depths of this area or that area, there's always beautiful parts everywhere, and I wanted to also um you know find those gems, and like even just a shot on the corner where these two guys are talking, and you get the background, the atmosphere, it gives it real LA vibes. But so sorry. So the ending that Kevin wrote was great. It was fun to direct that. And then the part where they're talking in front of the by the train tracks, and again, Spooky. He's never been on a set before, and that was my boy, and Casper was right there next to him, and he's also a friend from Corona. And it was just fun, six shot, intense moment, and it was fun. So those are my two scenes that stand out.
Now, there was actually two things that you brought up that actually I'd like to delve in a bit more into. First one, since we're on the topic of scenes and actors, Spooky, never acted in a movie before, still gave a well-rounded performance for someone that has never stepped foot. How were you able to get that out of him? Did you have to pull him aside, or was it just a very direct, like, hey man, look, you're doing this as a favor for me. I can't stress enough how grateful I am. Do your best, and we'll try to work with what you can give us. Like, or was it like you pulled them aside and you're just like, okay, so this is how you feel. Imagine this, imagine that. Cut, camera, speed, go.
Yeah, no, great question. So I had worked with him. We would do phone calls, right? So we'd write the scene, and I would tell him, he would actually, I think he was sending me some videos at some point of like his delivery,
Yeah.
like, yeah. And I'm like, So we would work with it, and then I gave him the mentality, where his mind space is as a character, his character of, in that moment. And so he understood the character, he understood the situation, the scene, and he understood who he was talking to because, you know, uh, Dustin, the main character, his background was from the street, so there is a little bit of a familiarity between them too, and so all this comes into play in Spooky's character. So he, like you said, for him not doing this at all, showing up, obviously we did it a couple takes, and we went through things. He had some ideas. Can I deliver it a little toned down? And I'm like, sure. And um, but yeah, I was pleased with his performance and the work ethic he put into it. He would always say like, hey, if you want me to do it differently, let me know. I'll come out to LA again because he's from Riverside. I'll come out to LA. We'll spend the day. We'll go over this and all the scenes. And his dedication was, he was prepared.
I'll tell you one of the best things was we were in a film festival, the Hollywood Real Independent Film Festival, and we were lucky enough to win for best oh
Best thriller.
thriller. I wanted to say drama, but best thriller.
Yeah.
And for us to be at a movie theater in LA, right across the street from Staples or Crypto, and to have the theater filled with both friends and family and people from the movie and then general population that were at the film festival, but to be in that and to see the childlike joy of them seeing themselves on the camera on the big screen, right? I don't have a cameo. There's a reason for that because we kept breaking the cameras when we tried to do it. So
On the next
but
Christmas movie in the 4 points.
there we go. Next Christmas really. But I mean, that was like one of the absolute. I'm going to tell you, I got emotional that that to be able to see all of them and see the sheer joy and oh my gosh and how proud and excited they were and we were proud and excited for them. That was such a fantastic night to be able to do that. We ended up winning an award. That was certainly a great topper for the group. But to see those guys who could only dream what it's like to be in a movie on a big screen in a theater and have people hoot and holler and it was a good time, and it was really very, it brought things kind of a full circle moment that this is why we did this.
It's a reminder as to why, it's like, because I know, at least for myself, with some of the shorts that I've done, and for some of the friends who I've worked on their films for, during making a movie is essentially like is like baking a pie. It's very messy, it's very tedious, and at times you're like, oh man, is the final product gonna even be worth it? And then by the time you eat your pie, you're like, yep, yep, this is worth it. This is worth it. Which, from to hear that from filmmakers is always just a delight to hear because it means you're proud of your work. And to be proud of your work is always, always something worth praising.
And
Um,
then what doesn't quite, I think, get mentioned sometimes, which is certainly a reality to me, is how long things take. So almost to the from February of 24 to February of 25 and the movie being released, it was 1 year from the day that we were in that film festival and had our first exposure, and one that we've been in multiple film festivals since then. But between the opportunity to work a distribution deal with Buffalo 8 and work our way through that process and all the legalities and our legal team that have been very good at Amiri Group, and then we kind of tipped this off once we got all through all the legal aspects and all of the proofing and the quality control things that we need to do, and then we were lucky enough to kind of add the last piece of the puzzle to us, which is Rachel, our publicist, and she's really been helping bring that through. But it's literally it's a 3-year process to shoot the movie from start to where we are basically today. But it's been a year since we were able to show the movie and to actually now get it out on a worldwide release. I don't know that people quite grasp the amount of time that it takes to be able to put all these things together and get them out there and be able to do what you hope is quality work. It really is a trial of patience for sure.
Patience is a virtue. There's a reason that saying exists. And, Time is a horrendously fickle thing when it comes to, trying to test that patience. And, I can't even imagine what that year must have been like, waiting, talking, just meeting after meeting, hoping to see could this movie get a wider release, or is it just going to
Yeah,
remain in the depths of the indie circuit? There's plenty
you're
of
right
films.
there.
Yeah.
You nailed it totally. And then at some point we can. I think Raul and I allow ourselves about 30 seconds of disappointment on anything, right? And then we just immediately go back to, look, we're giving it our best. We're doing our best. We just need to get this out here. There was about 110 people that were either on set or on camera, right, that are involved with this. 110 that have been involved in the process from whatever the capacity is. Most of the people in the movie were either novices, this is their first time in the or they were being given the opportunity to step up to a new role. So maybe they were, second or third camera people, and now they were the first camera person, right? Or maybe they were a third AD or second AD, now they're the first AD. Any of those things that might be that would be able to give certain people an opportunity. I think we had 4 or 5 different sound guys, right? Because
Yeah.
we had to fill a schedule with what it is, and I don't know that we really hit a home run with everybody being available every time. So there was always a mix of, to use a poor sports analogy, there was the next player up, right? And Raw had a database and a Rolodex back in the day of deep contacts to keep going and keep going and keep working with this. And like when we got done and we're putting the credits together, it was like, holy moly, we had 110 people in this film to some capacity, and that's just so humbling, so humbling.
That's actually funny that you mentioned, first time people. That's actually something I was going to follow up on a little bit. And there's one element to this movie that has actually been sticking in my head, at least in terms of, going back to the technical, and that is the music. There are a couple really haunting pieces that, oh, excuse me, that there are a couple haunting pieces that really have been sticking in my head. And I would like to know, what was it like working with, hold on a second, I think I have his name here. Jackson Wood Brown. Like,
Hey,
what was it like working with him? Because, like I gotta know, what was the score something that he made on his own, or did he pay for the rights for it? Because there are some really, really good like pieces here that just kept that I had at one point I had to go, let me just rewind a little bit so I can hear that again.
yeah.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's funny because after we shot that, we did another short film, and I submitted a short film. Jackson was the score for that, the composer, and the festival called me and they're like, you should submit for this, just if just maybe." And I'm like, huh. And then so I was like, okay, and then I did, and he won an award. He's a great, talented artist. Yeah, so I sent him the movie, and then he watched it, and then he gave me his take on things. And there must have been maybe one or two pieces that I'm like, hey, can we lower this or can we take that out or whatever? But everything else was kind of just like, okay, that's that's dope. That's dope. That, like he crushed it. And there was a lot of original. I don't think we had to go get licenses from any libraries. Everything was Jackson Brown, Bobby Garofalo did that oldie song when they're in the Dustin and Spooky are talking about the train tracks. Morgoth Beats did the rap, you know. So all these, people that were involved in the movie, sorry, Jackson Brown though. He's dope, man. It was great. There's a couple song scores that he put together that I just kept listening to just because I would listen to some of them driving to work just because it was like this is gonna be sick in the scene. And yeah, he's talented.
We also were able to, so we have some family that have put some things together, right? So the my son and Adam, who's in the movie, also um, as they played some music and did some of the hardcore scenes. Uh, Steve Artea helped provide songs and input to things. Morgoth is a um, Grammy Award winning multi platinum producer in various genres. He's currently in a band with Shavo from System of a Down, and so
What?
yeah, so yeah, he's in a band with Shavo from System of a Down. 7 hours after Violet, man. If I didn't get that right, please put that out. I have to check with that. But he's worked with a ton of great artists, and we knew him from The Boys. Said my son and Adam had known, and Adam and Raul's brother had known him from bands that they were playing in, and we've always just stayed in contact. And he willingly, gave us a catalog of music to use and hooked us up with the studio scene, and that was really awesome that they took the time to do that also. And he's the one that's in the studio scene that has the tattoos um, and so he's in that scene also. The other guy with the beard happens to be my son Jake, and he's in that part. So we've got several things in here, and the music side of things, because of both the people we're very close to are very musically oriented people, and so they were able to. We were able to get them to chip in a little bit, but share with us, and it really made a very family feeling thing.
Yes, 100%.
Oh man, that's this is also phenomenal to hear. And look, there are plenty more things I would love to ask about the movie. I really would. Unfortunately, most of them are spoiler related, and to avoid ruining people's viewing experiences by asking that stupidly, I will simply ask both of you one final question. And don't worry, it's the same question. I'm not going to ask two wildly different things. The Lord knows I want to. I simply would like to know, you both are creative types, and, just as a teacher teaches, a creator creates. So, are there any certain things that are currently in the pipeline for the both of you that you want people to know about, or that you are at least able to talk about because NDAs are a thing? Raul, I'll start with you. Anything that you're working on that you kind of want to get people a little excited for?
Um, at the moment, uh, just developing a screenplay, but it's still early stages. So not much to talk about there. Hopefully 4 Points does well and points into a new path of the next one. So that's where I'm at right now.
Okay, interesting. Kevin, anything that you're currently working on that you want to get people a little excited for?
I'm going to tell you the thing to be excited for is anything that Raul does. That's the thing to be excited. So
Oh,
just
look
I
at
just want
that.
to start. I just want to start with that. Sure. Have I caught the bug? Have I started writing more things? I have probably 75% of one movie that Raul kicks me in the rear a few times. It says, "Hey, can you see if you can write the next 5 pages?" Because it's still sticking with me. And then I have another one that I'm really excited about that kind of came to me over the last 6 months. I talked to Raul about it and what we're doing. And so I would hope that 2025 would give us the opportunity to maybe, work together on another film and that, I'll be geared together. And when the inspiration hits and it strikes and I can lock myself away for a couple hours or days or weeks, and we'd be able to do that. I don't want to leave the interview with one other thing is that we had two wonderful people. That there's a lot of wonderful people, but I do want to tell you that we had Zoe and Lauren Bretches were our what would the titles be? Raw. I'm sorry with the
Boss ladies,
there you go, boss.
they took control.
They ran the show for us. They handled everything on set, and I just can't. They're both producers of the movie that we cumulatively, the two of us agreed that needed to be. And I would be remiss if I got through this. That there are a lot of people we are thankful for, and a lot of people we are grateful for. But those two ladies were just powerhouses. And if I didn't take the time to thank them, I would feel. I'd hang up the phone or get off the Zoom call and feel that I let down the majority of this. But we hope people can check out the movie. We hope you find that we feel that we presented a quality, high budget looking movie, and we, in the terms that it was a low budget thing, I think a lot of people see it. And some of the feedback we've gotten is it looks like it's a much higher budget movie than what we were able to lay out money for, and that's wonderful people. And all we hope for is that somebody in the scene or people or groups of the people can use this as a stepping stone to their next opportunities. And that's really what this is going to be about, is as this is just the first rung of the ladder. And we're hoping that we can work together with so many of them again. But I'm hoping that somebody is going to, several people are going to get opportunities from this to get their next move and their next thing. And maybe down the road, we'll get the idea that says, hey, this is where I got my start. And we'd be proud of that.
Oh my goodness. Oh, sorry. The sentimental part of me is, just being like, that's such a nice thing to say. Honestly, like the two of you should be absolutely proud of your work. I mean, for God's sakes, I watched it twice. You know how many movies like I choose to watch twice? It's a truly entertaining film with a lot of heart to it, a lot of soul, and it's very much LA driven. So to you, Kevin, and to you, Raul, thank you so much for being with me today and to talk about your upcoming movie, The 4 Points, which, another shameless plug, comes out on VOD tomorrow on February 7th. So please give it your money, give it your eyes, give it your attention. It is well worth your time. So to the both of you, I will say this. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
Appreciate
you
it.
so much. Thank you.
No problem.